Bryant Fisher, and I'm the Chief Experience Officer with TAG. Welcome to another edition of TAG TV, TAG Radio. We're proud to be hosted by V-Link Solutions, our partner in all of this, and we happen to be in their Alpharetta studio today, which happens to be next to our TAG North Metro office, so it's exciting to be here. I'm really excited to bring a really special guest today. We are joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Waldo Waldman. He's a best-selling, New York Times best-selling author of Never Fly Solo, and also a globally renowned inspirational speaker. So you're in for a treat. Let's get settled in and talk to you this morning about some really exciting subject matter. But before we go to Never Fly Solo and how you've used your military career to help folks in all lines of business, I want to take folks back to when you were a fighter pilot and what that was like, because my understanding is that you battled claustrophobia, you were afraid of heights, and yet you rose to the heights in your military career. So take us back a bit and talk to us about what that was like. I knew you were in 65 combat missions, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, thank you for your service to our country. So take us back a little bit to what that was like.
You're welcome, and it's great to be here, Julie. Thanks for taking the time this morning. So obviously, flying fighters, ton of fun, high energy, constantly changing world, competition, technology, performance focused. I mean, if you're a type A person like me, you just can't be in a better job than flying jets. But it was challenging, and 3 years into my flying career, I almost died in a scuba diving accident. It brought out this latent claustrophobia that I never thought I had, and it was basically my PTSD. And so for most of my career, I struggled with this battle of anxiety to overcome that fear and still perform, still become a decorated fighter pilot. I was blessed to have a lot of awards because I was focused on my team. I was focused on the experience, got out of my head, and was able to keep that service mindset, which wasn't obviously easy to do, but it really made me more introspective, empathetic, and compassionate for people who are high performers, who struggle with other issues in their life in order to get into their cockpit and still perform well.
What is it like to overcome that kind of anxiety when your life is on the line? Can you take us inside the fighter pilot scenario for a second and just describe what that's like?
So I want you to imagine if you had claustrophobia and I said, all right, Julie, you're ready to fly a combat mission. It's going to be 7 hours tonight. We're going to be flying from midnight to 7 in the morning. It's going to be pitch black, and you're going to have people trying to kill you, shoot missiles at you. Are you ready to go? You better be prepared. You better have a maniacal focus on your team, have confidence in yourself, your technology, have a passion for that mission, and distract yourself from the fears that are incumbent of strapping in your jet to fly. And if you look at people today overcoming challenges in work, the volatile economy, healthcare issues, the precarious world of business today, tariffs, changing technologies, people are strapping in to fly their jets, and they're going to be fearful. Now, it's not as much fun, if you ask me, being in technology as far as flying an F-16,
right.
But we sure as heck needed to leverage it and use it. It was my wingman.
Yeah.
And so the energy, the passion, that excitement is what overcame that fear. And realizing, most important, Julie, that I had men and women in my formation, on my team, who supported me, who I could turn to for help, and who really needed me to go out there and execute. It gave me a meaning to my mission, a sense of duty, and a sense of moral obligation to know that I was doing more than just flying this jet. People needed me, and I think that drives someone to perform more. It helps them commit and give them the courage to go out and exceed expectations and overcome their barriers.
Well, it's amazing. Your career has been remarkable. So the combat missions aside and your military service aside, let me just see if I can get all this straight. Right. So you serve your country, you graduate from the Air Force Academy, you're highly decorated, you go on to get your MBA with a focus in organizational behavior, right? And then you become a top producing sales manager. So describe a little bit about how you used your military experiences. You were alluding to it earlier, to hone that approach to business and sales I'm really interested in what were those aha moments? I mean, were you always aware that this is eventually where you were going to go, or were you focused in that cockpit just looking to stay alive? And then at some point, it started to occur to you that you could help others through this.
Well, it was really the wingman philosophy was about the people. What I loved about the military, and in particular flying fighters, where there were other like-minded individuals, high performers, overachievers for that matter. It was amazing to be in a squadron of people who just wanted more out of life, who had passion, but also weren't flying by the seat of their pants. What was great about being in a fighter squadron was that everybody was prepared. When you showed up to that briefing and were ready to fly that combat mission, I knew Julie was prepared, she was focused, that we had the best training, that we had our tools and technologies available to us. So this culture of performance, this culture of camaraderie is what really made me more impassioned about my military service and what I leveraged to become a top performer in sales. I prepared for my sales goals. I never picked up the phone unless I did my research. I knew my technology. I followed up. I was accountable. I was disciplined. But I also had great people working with me and for me who allowed me to overcome some of the challenges, who checked my six, which we can talk about here in a moment, who saw my blind spots. And I think another tool that I use in my flight plan for success, and I think any peak performer either listening or watching this video, is the ability to be humble and to realize that you may not see the big picture, that you have to be willing to ask for help.
Yeah, that's hard. You
must be able to do that, and then just be open to the feedback that you may not want to hear, but need to hear. And so many of my friends who know me very well, they say, Waldo, you're so good at getting feedback. You're always receptive. And I try to get my ego out of the way, although it hurts to mess up. I want that feedback because that's how we grow. Yeah. And it's through those relationships and taking action on them.
So how did you, and we'll talk about the six in a second, checking your six, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
How did you develop the never fly solo approach? How did you decide to sort of, make that a thing, make that something that you were going to bring to others and use to help others?
So it was realizing that even though I was in the cockpit by myself, I had other wingmen, men and women, who were supporting me. Not just the people in the air, my fellow fighter pilots, but also the maintenance technician, whose job it was to make sure the jet was fueled, the weapon systems were up to date, the stores management system or our radar was accurate, and if there were problems, they were fixed. The intelligence officers giving me the intelligence on where the threat was, the tactics to use. So many men and women who were responsible for me to getting up there and having the confidence to win. And I remember as a young captain, long story short, I chewed out a young crew chief, a young airman, who didn't fill up my jet as much as it should have been filled with fuel. And I was abusive to him, used foul language, I wasn't very respectful. My commander found out about it and said, you know what, Waldo, you're going to walk the flight line with these young kids, those crew chiefs, those technicians, wow, to see what they do, to appreciate what they do. It humbled me, made me realize that, man, if it wasn't for what they did down here, I wouldn't be able to do what I did up there. So this concept of not flying on your own, not flying solo, and that there are other constituents who are responsible for you being the top gun and also who need you to hit the targets as well, right?
Yeah, it's important, right? And so all of these things apply to life and business.
Right.
So when you're speaking to global audiences, what are those pieces of advice that you're offering? And let's go here to technology too, right? So we're the Technology Association of Georgia, and all of the constituents that we deal with are in a very vibrant, dynamic, fast-paced world.
Right.
How do you advise your audiences and the folks you meet on how to navigate their spaces using these philosophies?
A couple things. So first of all, you need to be approachable and coachable. Many technology gurus, CIOs, executives have reached that pinnacle in their life, a seat at the table along with sales and marketing and whatever. It's because they have tactical acumen. But when you start getting into leadership roles, you need to realize that you need to Be coachable from your team, to be receptive to that feedback that I just discussed before. And then also be approachable. From a new hire, you know, we have a lot of young millennials who are coming up through the ranks with new ideas on cutting costs, leveraging technologies and tools. If I can't approach you, Julie, as my CIO, and say, I have an idea, or I see something that you don't see, there's a missile coming here, we need to take action. And if you say, hey, you know, Waldo, you're just a young 25-year-old millennial, I've been in this business for 30 plus years. If you're not approachable and aren't receptive, that's going to be a challenge. So those soft skills are critical. And then, you know, once again, showing up, realizing that technology is constantly changing, and to be uncomfortable, to be seeking out new tools, to leverage their network within the Technology Association of Georgia or in their community, to share best practices, to say, what's going on at your company, at Southwire or at Medtronic or any company, and say, what's working for you? Share that with me. What do we do right? What do we do wrong? How can we leverage our relationships, our skill sets, our experience, so that we're all benefiting from this amazing network of technology top guns who get together and constantly seek to get better than they were yesterday.
I love that, because that's what TAG's doing, right? I mean, we're basically the wingman for the technology community throughout the state of Georgia. We're here to help put you in front of folks that can help you push past your boundaries and push past your comfort zone, and offer you those folks that can come around and say, I see some ideas that maybe you didn't see, and I'd like to work with you here. So how would you advise us to hone that? Like, what are some pieces of advice you could offer an association?
So if you, like, once again, the blind spot, like if you picture sitting in a jet, in an F-16, tiny little cockpit, right, barely able to move, you got a helmet and mask on.
Is it hot in there?
Well, we have decent air conditioning. Once you're airborne, but on the ground, it doesn't work too well. So South Carolina in August was tough. So you could see out 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you know, it's easy to see, but behind you is 6 o'clock. You can't see your most vulnerable position behind you. A missile could be coming, you can have an enemy aircraft creeping up on you, and you can't see it. But if you have a wingman or a wingmam at your right 3 o'clock, it's easier for them to look over their shoulder to see what you can see, and then tell you to take action, to give you feedback, to tell you to brake right, brake left, maneuver out of the way. And so a wingman cross-checks that blind spots and tells you what you need to hear. They care about you. They're going to have difficult conversations, but it's also incumbent upon you, once again, to listen to that feedback, to be approachable, coachable, to take the action necessarily, and then also have the courage to give that feedback to someone else. Because sometimes it's difficult to share feedback with a peer if you know a missile's coming and they're messing up. You got to care about them enough to tick them off, to have a tough conversation. And I'll tell you, in the world of technology, things are constantly changing, just like in a fighter squadron. You've got to be able to share that feedback and have the courage to do it, because this is how we grow. It's not by accepting mediocrity, it's by challenging the status quo and pushing ourselves to be better than we were yesterday. And that is not an easy thing to do. That's how companies and individuals stay relevant and are able to compete, collaborate, and ultimately innovate to grow.
How do you foster that? How did you foster that kind of environment in the military, and how do you foster that in a business line?
You have to do it before the missiles come, Julie. You have to care about people, get to know them. We talk about Generation X and Y, and I say it's Generation U. Y-O-U. I'm going to get to know you, Julie. What are your values? What's your vision? What do you want at home? And what are you fighting for at work? What are your dreams and goals? And as executives and leaders dealing with technology, sometimes we get so focused on that that we forget about the person behind the employee. And so caring, connecting, nurturing the relationships, volunteering, going out of your way to be a wing giver in your office beyond just your job title. And that kind of marinates the steak of relationships, gets people to work harder, to volunteer more, to go through the discomforts, because there's a sense of loyalty, right? If I'm loyal to you, it's because you care about me, you care about my best interests. And so those things are easy to do, but easy not to do. So we have to stick back to those fundamentals, the relationships, the connection, the accountability, the work ethic, all those soft skills truly drive the technology outcome, in my opinion.
What are your favorite things? You're speaking across the globe. What are your favorite things to say to your audiences? What is it that you would most want them to take away and go home with and put into their lives, put into their businesses to improve themselves?
First of all, it's not about being fearless. We see books written on fearless leadership. We see this drive, be a fearless leader. When you are face to face with your fears, like I was flying in combat, and I was, through many of the things that I've experienced in my life, it humbles you, makes you once again more empathetic to others, and says, you know what, I've got to get back in the books. I've got to work on myself. I got to overcome my personal challenges in order for me to be a better contributor to my team. Don't try to be fearless. Just be humble enough to say, I'm going to mess up, but I'm going to show up as prepared as I possibly can. I have a saying, wingmen never wing it.
Right.
And we don't fly by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
Just like you prepare for this interview, just like when you have a seat at the table, when you're hanging out at a board meeting or briefing a customer, show up prepared. Do the research. Go above and beyond. And I think that'll nurture the trust that's also critical to furthering a relationship, a product launch, or maybe nurturing a client to leverage your product and write another check to you for your services, right?
Yeah.
And then last and certainly not least, it's the ability to ask for help, to be courageous enough to say, I don't know, and to seek out people in your network who can help you, who can humble you, and then just continue to pay that forward. I think when we do that, now we're planting seeds of greatness in ourselves and in others, and are constantly realizing that, hey, we got to show up every single day, an empty vessel, willing to grow, and that'll hopefully make a difference in your life and in the relationships of the people that you work with and for.
Well, for someone who inspires so many, what inspires you? And this can go all the way back to your military career, sort of examples along the way, or companies that inspire you, people that inspire you, books that inspire you. What brings inspiration to you so that you can give it to others?
When I help somebody overcome their fears and have the courage to take a risk, when I'm able to, I call them, you got to sometimes kick them in the rear and then hug them, right? I like, pushing people to realize they can take that next leap. I was also afraid of heights. I jumped off a 33 feet high diving board in order to graduate the Air Force Academy.
We have to go back. All right, so you're afraid of heights, and you decide you're going to jump off a 33-foot high. Okay, you got to tell me.
In order to graduate the Air Force Academy and eventually become a pilot, you had to jump off this diving board. And so it was the first fear I faced that said, in order for me to achieve my dream, I had to face this fear and jump, right? And so those 33 feet high diving boards we all face every day. Our commitment is only tested when we're on the edge of the diving board looking down and facing our fears.
Yeah.
And once you do that, it gives you the confidence, the courage, and eventually evolves your skill set and improves your capabilities to be a better leader. So that's what inspires me. When I can talk to somebody that we know, for example, Rainey, and some other people who realize that they've taken a risk, they're better than they were yesterday, that inspires me. And last and certainly not least, my 9-year-old little guy at home who I lead, who teaches me about leadership and compassion and parenthood. That's an amazing gift that I've been blessed to have as well.
As we close it out, I think there's nothing more humbling than being a parent.
Yes.
I think at that point your ego is just gone.
Yeah.
You're down to a nub at that point. But you learn so much through the experience.
Sure.
It's really a pleasure to get to sit down and talk with you today. I know our audiences will feel the same way. We're really excited to have you as a partner in TAG and grateful to you for your service to your country. So thanks for coming on today and for being our partner. We appreciate it. Our wingman. How about that?
I so enjoyed it, Julie.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure.